You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show of the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. The phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go directly to the front of the line. We don't have any new callers today, but we got TJ from Alabama.
Hey, Ryan, TJ from Alabama. Hey, it pains me to do this, but I think it must be said that I think it's time to go ahead and crown the Bears for their three-peat. I think for the third year in a row, the Bears have claimed the non-existent offseason trophy. Well done.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Bears fans. This is your time.
You're right.
I can't argue with it. This is your time, the offseason.
I mean, it's hard to argue, man. I mean, you had back-to-back number one overall picks. 2 years ago, you had the greatest trade in NFL history. Granted, I went and did the math on it, and it came out to being exactly even. In other words, you got exactly what the pick was worth, which kind of sucks, actually. You should get more than what it doesn't matter. Greatest trade in NFL history ever. Granted, you did that trade because you thought Justin Fields was the future and decided against taking C.J. Stroud, for example. But still, greatest trade in NFL history. Ended up with DJ Moore, who hates it there and was really bad last year. And then, of course, last year, you got the greatest quarterback prospect probably in NFL history. I don't think we've ever seen a quarterback as gifted as Caleb Williams, and you got him with the number one overall pick again. Kudos to earning this one by being the worst team in football. It's an honor that not many of us can say we've ever earned. I in my lifetime, I don't know that I've ever seen the Packers with such a prestigious honor. And you went and got the greatest quarterback of all time. Only in the offseason, obviously, not in the regular season. That was certainly not the case. But in the offseason, the greatest quarterback prospect we've ever seen. And then this year, even without the number one overall pick, you're already the champions. You got the greatest head coaching candidate that has ever lived. We've never seen a more hyped candidate, a more qualified candidate, a guy that checks every box from, his how good the offense was in Detroit to the team that he worked for to the quality of the offense that was there in Detroit. The list goes on, really. The list goes on forever, literally forever. I could do this forever. The spectacularness of the offense in Detroit. I mean, again, literally could just take eons to go through the full list. So they've done it again, and they're just getting started. They got a draft coming up, and we know the Bears dominate the draft. Again, only in the offseason. Doesn't really materialize in the regular season. But in the offseason, everything they do is gold. From the best quarterback prospect in football to not trading a pick when you had none and taking a third receiver to drafting a backup tackle that isn't very good to drafting a punter when you only have 4. I mean, you turned it into 5 picks with a trade, which was genius. But, drafting a punter, which actually ended up probably being your best pick, including your quarterback, but still, brilliance. Pure, sheer, unadulterated brilliance across the board. And I for one, can't wait to sit back in awe and admire. Usually when you're in an away area, like when the draft was in Chicago, the Packers were booed when they made their pick. I don't even think we're going to boo the Bears because we're all going to be waiting with bated breath to hear just brilliance. And whatever they do, I'm sure when it happens, we're going to want to boo. But really what's going to happen is it's going to be this sort of biblical thing that happens where we have to avert our eyes from the sheer brilliance of the pick when it happens. We'll fall to our knees and weep and worship as a single chorus because of the brilliance of whatever it is that they end up doing. I'm sure that is the case.
Ryan, Beer Chief Benny.
Hey.
Bro, did you see that dude Mike Green from Marshall?
Yeah, I just watched him. So there's 3 games. I watched one of them. I went and watched the other 2. I actually watched the third one again because I wasn't sure if I finished it. So I watched him. Let me just pull up my notes here. I literally just did it. And I was about to start Shamar Stewart. And I was like, you know what? You probably should get the podcast going. I watched Southern Miss, where he was just an absolute freak show. Ohio State was kind of iffy, but still decent enough. He didn't get embarrassed or anything. And then Louisiana Monroe, where he was again relatively dominant in that, just throwing around tackles. Granted, the tackle was like 290 pounds. It's not a typical NFL tackle, but yeah, he's a talented guy, and I know he's getting a ton of hype at the. Is he Senior Bowl or Shrine? I don't even remember which one. I think he's Shrine. I don't know. I do want to go through and kind of look at some of his reps there as well, just to kind of see what he's doing. The stupid thing about those, which has been pointed out a bunch of times, is it's all kind of fake. You know, I mean, first of all, I mean, you're able to do things when it's a one-on-one that you can't do when it's a 5-man line. You know, you're not. There's nobody chipping you. You can cut to the inside. There's no guard there. So your ability to kind of do crazy, goofy stuff, spin moves, and all this other is it's much easier in those situations. It's the same with like the receivers. It's like they're running. I saw somebody say that these guys are running TikTok routes. Like it's like or they're doing like 7 stutter steps and all this crazy stuff, and it's like that you don't do that in the NFL. So to some degree, it's all kind of stupid, but it's still interesting enough, I guess.
Edge rusher. Dude, okay, so like I've been hearing a lot about him, and I wanted him. I'm like, okay, just based on what I'm hearing, and I never really saw anything of him. I never, I just saw his stats. And I'm like, okay, like he gets sacks, and like he's pretty. Dude, when he was at that, is it whatever the thing where they do like the little scrimmages or like little practices, where they line up the O-line and they have guys like, just run drills, like try to get to the quarterback. Bro, did you see that video of Mike Green literally threw this dude who probably was way bigger than him, just threw him to the ground, like bench pressed him, like away from him. Dude, if you haven't seen this, you need to find it, dude, and see it. I'm like, as soon as I seen that, I'm like, bro, we need this guy. Like, I would love, if they drafted him first round, I'd be happy, bro.
See if I can find it.
Unbelievable, man. Yeah, I haven't really seen a whole lot. I just haven't been able to watch a whole lot of this stuff. I was watching the East-West Shrine Bowl yesterday, and dude, there's a running back, and I know we don't really need one, but dude, this guy was impressive. From Arizona, Ja'Cory Krosky something. Dude, that guy looked awesome. And now he seems more like a running back, kind of like very successful at running to the outside. I wouldn't be upset if the Packers got him, but I don't think they need to get him. With Marshawn Lloyd, they've invested in that, and then you got the other Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks. Like they're gonna have to make a decision on one of those guys, keeping him or whatnot. But yeah, Mike Green, good grief, bro. That would be sweet. And you know what? We could call him Green Bay Mike. That's what we could call him. That'd be awesome. But anyways, all right, have a good day. Go back up.
Green is a good last name to have. I'm trying to figure out who he's bench pressing here. I think that's a Johnny Cornelius, if I'm not mistaken. Is that 65? I think it is. So he is a 6'5", 315-pound tackle out of Oregon with a 72.3 pass blocking grade. He's been a pretty solid pass blocker and run blocker, honestly, his entire career here. He's currently sitting at 103, and he just dropped 3 spots, probably because of this clip. So he's kind of flirting with the top 100, but not maybe as much anymore. But yeah, that's a big boy to get inside of and just knock straight on his back. The only thing I would caution people about is to please remember he played for a smaller school. I'm just looking at a lot of this stuff, and everybody's just pointing to stats. Stats. Well, he's going to have better stats. If you... Sam Monson is saying that it's Josh Connerly that he ran through. They have him listed as number 76, but it's showing he's wearing a 55 at the Senior Bowl, which is what I thought it was because the other guy's 65. This guy's 55. Josh Connerly is actually expected to be potentially a first-round pick. He had an 83.5 PFF grade, 6'4", 315 pounds. So, yeah, he's currently sitting at 29 overall. So right around the same area as Mike Green, to be honest. Are they right next to each other? Let me go back to looking at all here. Yeah, Mike Green is 28. Josh Connerly is 29. Now, I don't know how the rest of the reps went. I don't know if they saw each other again, but still, that's pretty nice. Yeah, I got other people. There's another view of it here. You can see it's 55 Connerly. That's even more impressive for sure. You know, he is a powerful guy. There's no doubt about it. He kind of gets knocked for being a little bit of a smaller type of a guy, which can be a benefit because you tend to be more agile and whatnot, but his ability to kind of fight through double teams and just kind of fight past people and just be really hard to contain, it's pretty impressive. But anyways, getting back to my point, you know, again, everybody, well, look at his stats compared. Let me look at this one thing. They're showing a chart, for example. And I mean, this is people that should know better too. 13,000 followers, NFL Draft Files, whoever that is. But it's like, oh, look at how much better he is than Abdul Carter. Because if we look at a chart here from PFF data of pass rush production and run defense production, he's better. Well, no duh, because he played against lesser competition. It's not to say he's bad, but that does factor in. You're going to be more productive against worse competition. You put Abdul Carter against the same tackles that, you know, and he's in the same tier as Will Anderson. He circled them both as though they're the same guy. Will Anderson played for Alabama, significantly higher levels of competition. If Mike Green played for Alabama or Penn State like Abdul Carter, he would not have had this level of production. Again, not to say he's bad, but anytime you see people throwing stats at you, especially comparing to other guys that play for bigger programs, just completely throw that in the garbage. It's useless. It doesn't mean anything. This is what you need to watch is watch the film, watch the technique, watch all that stuff, because as much as I like stats, and I do, it's way more useful in the NFL than it is for college football. Because college football, the gap in talent is massive. Through the course of an NFL season, you generally play roughly the same amount of competition. So I know that's, you didn't point out stats because you're pointing out a first-round pick tackle that got run over. I'm just saying in general, as I was looking at this, there's so many people who are just talking about his stats and his production, and he should be talked about as a top 10 pick because look at his stats, and it's like, come on, guys, don't do that. But no, I like him. I do like him. I just always have a hard time with some of the smaller school guys unless I see them do this against better competition. And like I said, two smaller schools, he was dominant, and I like it, but you almost kind of throw it in the garbage. And then against Ohio State, he had one nice sack and, otherwise was relatively quiet. It's also a video of him doing a backflip, which sounds stupid, but I actually really like that because not a lot of edge rushers are out there doing backflips, especially if you're the Packers, you're looking for those guys that have that unique DNA, you know what I mean? And then, the running back, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is his name. Not a ton to go off of. He played 1 week for Arizona. He had 13 attempts for 106 yards, 8.2 yards per attempt, and a touchdown. Presumably was injured in that game. Prior to that, he played for New Mexico, had a 93 grade, 6.3 yards per attempt, 17 touchdowns, 1,200 yards. Before that, 4 years at Alabama State. So, first of all, you're talking 6 years of college, and presumably a pretty serious injury that he's coming off of. So, that's going to be sort of the knock, just, off the top of my head that I would assume there's going to be. He's currently, I mean, if you wanted the Packers to get him, it's entirely possible because he's currently on the consensus big board at 416, which would make him a undrafted free agent. So he could be just a guy that slots in that way if he ends up making it to the pros. But all right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We got some Kyle from Madison.
Hello, my friend. Kyle from Madison. I don't know where you live, but it's going to be 41 here.
Yeah, dude.
Where I live today. Man, this is shorts and barbecue grill weather. I mean, this is great. So I think I'm going to do some burgers tonight on the grill. I bust it out in the winter sometimes still, even though I'll be out there going, what am I doing? Like,
yeah, I do too.
minus 20 wind chill.
Not fun.
But today is going to be a grilling day for sure. I love this stuff. 40 degrees. It feels like 80 with the last couple of weeks.
Beautiful.
We've had. And the
40, I think it got up to, I want to say like 43, 45-ish, but also not a cloud in the sky, so you got the sun beating down, and the wind really wasn't bad, so it was nice out there. I don't know, it's back down to 26, so I don't know the next time we're going to see that, but it's nice to get those little reminders once in a while.
Sun is out today. So I'm just listening to Packernet from a couple episodes ago. You were replying to me. I had brought up that in that championship game, the way that, I don't feel the Packers have a gotta-have-it guy on third down in the receiver core, and the way that the Chiefs were able to use Kelsey, not so much as a target, but as a distraction in that game and free up Worthy and Schuster. And you said that you agreed, but, what if there's guys open already, And yes, you're right. The issue's going to be the quarterback's got to get the ball there. If the quarterback can't hit guys that are open, then this team's going to be terrible for 2 or 3 years minimum, because that's the bet we made. Now, I understand that kind of makes us all a little bit, I really like Jordan, and I like the way he plays. I didn't love the way he finished the year, but I think the guy can do it. He's shown he can play at a high level.
Right.
And it's interesting because yesterday I was listening to the pod and you were talking. I had called in and brought up Oren Burks, and, it sure looked like a coaching failure.
Right.
He was so bad in Green Bay, and then he just went other places, and it was a lot better.
Yeah, you wonder if, if Hafley and Campanile had gotten a hold of him, could he have really taken that same step that he took in San Francisco initially? You don't know. Maybe it was just a him thing where he needed some time, but you could see he was bad, goes to San Francisco, good immediately. It wasn't like some slow growth. I mean, it seems like he was just used improperly. And again, that's got to piss you off because Gutekunst got trashed as soon as he made the pick. It's like, why would you pick him? He's terrible. He's not worth the third round pick. Blah 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 blah. And Goose's like, no, he's good, man. Trust me. And, he hands him over to the coaching staff who doesn't know what to do with him, makes him look like a bum. We all hate him. He leaves. We look at Gutekunst like, bro, I like you, but that was freaking stupid. And then he blows up somewhere else, and Goose just sitting back going, yep, that's what I drafted right there. That's what so freaking annoying.
Better player. Man, I know that, Tom Clements retired, and certainly he seems to have done a great job with Jordan, but, maybe it was just kind of falling on deaf ears at the end of the tenure there.
Sure.
I'm not sure, but if I was Brian Gutekunst and I provided a quarterback that did what Jordan Love did last year, and yes, there were some injuries and some weird stuff, and you lost some players this year, right? Okay, I think the general manager understands that. But if next year you can't get that quarterback playing at a high level, then I do believe jobs are on the line.
Right.
Because I think if you're the general manager, you're thinking, no, this guy's proven he can do it, make it work.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think we have the pieces. And they better make it work. Otherwise it's for a couple years.
I agree. And, the quarterback coach, you just said his name and I'm blanking on it. He's held in such high regard by Packer fans. I would want to tread carefully here a little bit, but I don't know how much he's responsible for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers gave him a lot of credit, but he gave everybody a lot of credit. He wanted all his friends and everybody else working for him. Clements, that's it. And if he was able to stay back and help Jordan in some kind of a way, that's nice and all. I don't know how much he helped everybody and how much he did or didn't. And I'm going to hold on to the possibility that the Packers went to Clements and said, we want to do right by you and give you the opportunity to step away if you so choose, because we are planning to move in another direction. They really like, blanking on his name now, Mannion. They really like the guy. Obviously, like I said, I think it was maybe too early, and they're like, nope, that's our guy. We're not waiting another year. And it's very possible that they said, we want him to take the reins. We want him to be the guy to quarterback this thing, if you will. And, again, just, we look at it as, oh, no, Clements retired, now we're screwed. I don't know, man. Maybe. Maybe. Or, maybe it was just kind of understood that we're going in another direction, like with Ted Thompson. Ted Thompson wasn't fired, but we were absolutely going to move on from Ted Thompson, and it was a respect thing. We're not going to fire Ted Thompson, but we're also not going to allow him to be our GM anymore. So he's an older guy. He's flirting with retirement. He was already retired. He came out of retirement for Rodgers. And so, it would be the decent thing to do to allow him to retire rather than publicly coming out and saying you're fired and then he retires, But you're right. You're absolutely right to look at the situation and say, we've seen this guy play at a high level, and injuries or not, he fell off a cliff in a big way that is kind of unacceptable, and we can't be okay with this. There were really, in my opinion, there were two big failures on this team, the defensive line and the quarterback. You could maybe point out a couple, but I mean, again, I think the wide receivers were significantly better than they were being given credit for. The drops were an issue, not as big down the stretch as everyone continued to pretend that they were. And again, if the balls were placed a little better, there would have been significantly less drops. But as far as guys just getting open and doing what they needed to do, I thought they were doing a good job. The tight ends, again, I no problem with it. The offensive line, no problem with it. Corners, despite not being very talented, really did a good job. We had an issue in the middle of the field for a while with the safeties and linebackers being picked on quite a bit. I think we got that sorted out. Obviously, no problem with the linebackers, with the safeties. Jordan Love fell off a cliff, and the defensive line could not generate pressure to save their lives. We fired one of the coaches, and the other one just happened to retire. That's all I'm saying.
I was just having an argument with the Love hater, and he's one. The guy, just like pro Rodgers,
yeah.
And everything has to come back to Rodgers,
right.
And it's like it's so exhausting, it's so stupid, and I shouldn't have engaged with it, but shiny object and all.
I just wish they could explain to me what Rodgers has anything to do with anything. I don't understand what the relevance of Rodgers is with the. They're completely different situations. Whether or not we got Jordan Love has nothing to do with how Rodgers was handled here. Aside from that one pick, which would not have made a difference. Aside from that, what difference would it have made? Rodgers would not be our quarterback right now. He wouldn't. He would have been gone. The Packers hated that guy because of the way that he acted and his personality and everything else. Everybody in the building hated him and wanted him out, and they got him out. And it ended up being a good thing. Did you watch the Jets at all? Their entire culture went to zero. Everything was a disaster there. And their team couldn't win any football games, which is also hilarious for the people that want to say that the only reason we won and the only reason Matt LaFleur was any good and all this stuff is because of Rodgers, which hilariously, that narrative came back. It died immediately, and now it's coming back, and I have no idea why. I don't. We went to the playoffs with Jordan Love, who wasn't playing very well. Which is the point of your entire argument, is that Jordan's not any good. Okay, we still went to the playoffs. Why? Is it because we have a really good head coach? And if we have a really good head coach, how can you say that Rodgers propped this team up, especially when he went to another team and was worse than Zach Wilson? Explain that one to me.
I couldn't help it, but, he said, well, Love's trash, and we got to move off of him, and the sooner we do it, the sooner we can start over, and, okay.
Okay, but... Again, this is what annoys me with people just saying stuff. We just get rid of him. Okay, so now we don't have a quarterback. So that sucks. Now what are we going to do? What do we do? Who are we going to draft? What are we going to? Should we go get Aaron Rodgers? Is that your wet dream that we bring him back? That's never going to happen because Rodgers hates the Packers and the Packers hate Rodgers, and they don't want him coming in and toxifying the freaking locker room. So what's your plan? Should we draft Jalen Milroe out of Alabama or Jackson Dart, who made himself look like a friggin' jagoff in the offseason so far? It's a little harsh, but the reviews weren't great. Should we get Quinn Ewers out of Texas, or Will Howard, or Dylan Gabriel, or Riley Leonard? What should we do? How do we fix this? There isn't a fix because you're not proposing a fix. You just say we should get rid of Jordan because to you that's a victory, right? If Jordan fails, I win. And the sooner we get rid of him, the sooner I can declare victory, which doesn't even make sense anyways. Victory for what? For what? Because you didn't have a better plan. Again, if we didn't have Jordan, we wouldn't have gone to the playoffs the last 2 years. So then what? I mean, maybe we could have. We could have got Sam Darnold, and that freaking blew up inexplicably, or something stupid could have happened. We get some old, washed-up douche backup quarterback that ends up coming in and being decent, which, again, with Matt LaFleur, maybe you could make that work. I don't know. But, again, 2023, Jordan was a major reason why we were as good as we were, but... So I mean, again, what is your plan? Mac Jones? Is that what we should have done? We should have drafted Mac Jones, or what exactly? You don't have a plan. You just want to piss and moan and whine.
But then here's where his argument falls apart. I say, okay.
Already fell apart.
Well, maybe we should trade him. Well, yeah, if we get a good, high enough compensation. Well, wait a second. I thought he was trash.
Why bad.
Now we're looking for high compensation? I mean,
right.
We'd be lucky to get a 6 or 7s, I guess.
Right.
Well, no, I'd want to be getting second or higher. It's like, dude. So what are you talking about? So then I asked, well, why don't we trade Love then to the Lions or the Vikings? Well, I don't want them in the division, just in case, And this is where it falls apart. It's like, yeah.
Well, that's where you're just talking to a stupid person, because if they were just. It's very easy to not fall into that trap and just say, I would love it because then it'd be terrible. But, you're obviously talking to a not very smart person.
You want to bag on the quarterback because he didn't have a good year, but then when it's like, talk about trading him to somebody else, now you're not so sure. You know what I mean? And it's so stupid. I don't know why I'm engaging in this. Like, yes, I don't know whether he's going to be the final form we hope him to be, but like, this whole premature, let's cut him, trade him, but just not to anybody where he could be good thing is where the argument falls apart, and it's so freaking stupid. Like, I don't know. And no, he's not going to be Rodgers. Nobody's going to be Rodgers, man. We don't need him to be Rodgers, and we don't necessarily want him to be Rodgers in that sense. LaFleur, I truly believe, like, people bag on LaFleur too, about his game.
You know who else hasn't been Rodgers this year? The two quarterbacks that are going to be in the Super Bowl. Mahomes was maybe barely a top 10 quarterback this year. I don't know how he ended up. And everybody's looking at the Eagles right now saying that the quarterback is basically the biggest thing holding that team back. So,
management, whatever. Look, man, remember McCarthy got to an NFC Championship game before Rodgers. I was there. It sucked. We lost to the Giants. But McCarthy had his bugaboo with play calling issues in game, and he overcame them to get to several championship games and win a Super Bowl. So, like, the idea, and I think LaFleur is vastly better at in-game decisions than McCarthy. Okay? So, I do believe that if Love can play to his potential and be like a perennial top 8 quarterback, we can win a Super Bowl with that, with LaFleur. I really believe that. So, I don't need necessarily MVP Jordan. Give me top 8, and I believe we can win a Super Bowl with that. So, people expecting Rodgers or Peyton Manning or whoever walking the door, I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think it needs to happen. So, anyway, peace.
Like I've said before, you don't need that. I mean, all the extra stuff that Jordan gives that everybody's obsessed with is nice, but those are things that happen maybe once or twice a game, those highlight reel throws. We weren't losing because of the lack of highlight reel throws. In fact, every bad quarterback you've ever seen, the problem with them is that they only have one or two of those highlight level throws. The problem is they can't consistently play down to down. Right? That was my biggest knock against Tom Brady, is he just didn't have highlight level throws. You watch his highlight reel and it was boring because he didn't do anything special. He had a couple nice downfield throws or whatever. Yeah, great. The reason he dominated constantly is because he just always knew where to put his eyes and where to throw the ball, and he threw it accurately, and that's it. It was very quick, relatively short passes, constantly over and over to guys that were usually open. And that's what the Chiefs do. There's just a guy coming across the middle open all the time, and they just throw it to him. And then they do it again and again and again and again and again. And you're just saying, how is Travis Kelce open? How do they keep getting him open? And again, my whole thing is Matt LaFleur's doing the same thing. We don't need a superstar quarterback. We need a guy that can just put his eyes in the right spot, find the open guy, throw an accurate ball, and get it there. And right now, he's not seeing the open guy, not throwing to the open guy, and not throwing accurate balls, and those are three really big problems. So I don't need superstar Jordan Love. I don't need Aaron Rodgers. I just need, honestly, and I'm not saying that I want to go in this direction, but when we were winning with Malik Willis, that was perfectly adequate because all Malik did is when he was called upon to throw the ball, which wasn't a ton, he just knew where to throw it, and he threw extremely accurate passes. And that offense was very good, right? That's all you need. We don't need heroics. It'll help you go to that next level, for sure. But just being an adequate quarterback that can do the basics would have taken us 10 steps ahead of where we were this past year. So, yeah, if you can occasionally pull off the highlight stuff when, it should have been a sack or whatever, and you're throwing across your body and all the stuff that everyone loved Aaron Rodgers for, that's nice and all. But that's not the main thing. It's just not. Those are things that happen much less often than the opportunities that are presented to you over and over and over and over and over on a down-to-down basis. And punting 7 times and then throwing some highlight-level pass for a touchdown is not my idea of a great quarterback or a great offense. But let's take a break, and we got one more Kyle from Madison and then some Garrett from Southern Illinois.
Just one last point on this, because I went to coffee with some people. I ended up having this argument, and so I'm not really excuse me, I'm not a religious guy, but I'm very interested in like biblical archaeology, for example. I think that's just fascinating, and it's really interesting when like archaeology finds something that proves the existence of a place or a person from the Bible. I think that's just so interesting. And you can have a lot of great conversations around the facts of that within that arena. And you're going to find people that are obviously very much religiously connected, but also have an archaeological side to them as well. But sometimes people are in that arena and they don't like what's discovered, or, for example, you can date the Coptic dialect to different regions. There's things that are like that. And sometimes someone will say, yes, but I just feel it's not like that. And I'm not going to tell somebody how to have, what their higher power says. But that is a different arena. You know what I mean? If you're going to tell me you're right because you just feel it, okay, that's your right, but that's not, that's a different track. And we see this in politics too. Like, I just feel like it was worse, or I feel like it was better when. It's like, well, why don't we look at some information? And I get these arguments like, well, I just feel like Matt LaFleur will never be able to win the big one. Or I feel like Jordan Love can never do it. Well, okay. Again, that's just a completely different track of thought and discourse. Like, I can't tell a person how to feel. But then if they're going to engage with me about facts, what the hell am I supposed to do with their feelings? I don't care about their feelings. Okay, Nostradamus, since I guess the Packers should just fire Matt LaFleur now because you feel like he can't win it. You know what I mean? And it's just, and it's my fault because I take the bait. I freaking take the bait. And then there's always this card they can pull. Yeah, but I feel like he can't win it. Yeah, now there's nothing I can say except, well, what a dumb. Great. Now you know what I'm saying? I can't, you can't bring facts against someone's feelings. It's not, they're different arenas, they're different tracks of of thought. They're different tracks of argument, of comparison. You can't. It's apples and oranges, and then it blows up into nonsense. And sorry, I just needed to vent because I just see this all the time throughout the zeitgeist of our society, and I can't stand it.
Yeah, and a lot of people won't actually say I just feel. They're at least smart enough to know not to go down that road, but it's what they mean when they say whatever they say. A lot of the watch the tape, bro. A lot of those guys are literally just saying I feel. That's all they're saying. People that actually watch the tape don't say watch the tape, bro. They're going to elaborate a little bit on what they've seen, right? Or ask very specific questions about, okay, well, how often did they run this, that, or the other, or what? You know what I mean? Like most people I think that we're talking to a lot of the time are people that fall into the I just feel category, and that's the entirety of everything that they are. It's like when you started this whole thing with the Aaron Rodgers thing, it never made sense from the beginning. What does Aaron Rodgers have anything to do with this team right now? If Jordan is good or Jordan is bad, that has nothing to do with Rodgers. If Jordan is good, that doesn't make Rodgers bad, and if Jordan is bad, that doesn't make Rodgers, somehow, like we shouldn't have got rid of him or what. I don't even know what the argument even is because they don't even get that far. It's just some kind of like a ha-ha told you. Told me what? We shouldn't have drafted Jordan. Why do you think we shouldn't have drafted Jordan? Well, because he's not playing well. So? What should we have done? Well, something else. Well, yeah, and of course, because it's unfalsifiable, which is everybody that is not very smart's favorite kind of argument is an unfalsifiable argument. Like, if we had done this, it would have changed all of human history. We would have won 7 Super Bowls. Rodgers would still be here. Devontae would be here, and we'd have T. Higgins, and we'd be winning all these Super Bowls. Funny thing is, we could potentially get T. Higgins right now. I don't think anybody thinks, even if Jordan got back to form, that T. Higgins would somehow make that difference between us winning or not winning. T. Higgins didn't make the difference between winning and not winning in Cincinnati. And yes, that's relevant to bring up because Joe Burrow has been one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. And T. Higgins was the number 2 wide receiver, and they still could barely even get to the playoffs. But again, even getting halfway this deep is unnecessary because there's no depth to anything that they're saying anyways. The majority of the people that you're going to argue with are really just coming from a place of I just feel. And as soon as you push back in any way, it's, well, you're stupid. You don't watch the tape. You don't know. You don't. Okay. All right. Well, anyways, good talk. Nice hearing from you.
Hey, Ryan. It's Garrett from Southern Illinois.
What's up?
I wanted to just bring up a couple things regarding quarterbacks and Super Bowls since we're on this Jordan Love thing. And so I've seen a lot of Super Bowls. Ones I can recall probably go back to 75, 74. But there are some that stick in my mind that I just want to remind the listeners that it's not always the great quarterback that wins the Super Bowl, which gives me hope that if the Packers can really make themselves a dominant defensive force, everything else can possibly take care of itself if Jordan just doesn't turn the ball over.
It's so funny how we're all always on the same page. You guys as callers are always on the same page, just randomly. Just all of a sudden, you guys are like, do you guys get together and like, hey, let's talk about this today? Yeah, I agree. It certainly helps. The more elite your quarterback is, I mean, there's nothing more valuable you can do to a team than crank up the value of the quarterback position. But it's not true that just having the best quarterback means you win a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, we just need good Jordan. We need good Jordan. Jared Goff was not elite, but they absolutely should have won a Super Bowl this year, if not for probably all the injuries and whatnot. And yes, I'm going to just give them that excuse. I don't really care. Conversely, like I said this before. I said the Chiefs are not playing well. Mahomes is not playing well. They're still going to win a Super Bowl. They're still going to beat Jared Goff. They're still going to beat Lamar. They're going to beat whoever they end up playing. It doesn't matter that the quarterback is better because it's just the freaking Chiefs. It's just how it goes. So yeah, I agree. We there's a certain level of we need Jordan to at least be this so that we can run our offense, but I have all the faith in the world in our team, and I look forward to improving in certain areas, but I will die on this hill that if Jordan was just playing at a higher level, we would have continued on in the playoffs and who knows how far, but yeah, that's why I'm not as dire. I mean, I sound dire because I keep hammering the same point over and over again, but I'm not, similar to, I think it was Kyle was saying, we don't need Rodgers. We don't need that. We don't need Brett Favre. The better he can be, the better, and he's demonstrated he has that number one quarterback in the NFL capability. That's awesome, and I would definitely love that. But that's not necessary for us to become an absolute powerhouse.
For instance, these are guys that won Super Bowls that are not extraordinary quarterbacks. Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer, Mark Rippon, Doug Williams, just to name a few, that in their time, they made the plays and they helped their team win Super Bowl to get there, but not quarterbacks you would think that are definitely Hall of Fame extraordinary worthy. So all in all, I think maybe Goody is doing the right thing, trying to pick the most dominant defensive players he can and just stack this defense. Because eventually he's going to hit. He's got to. And I think he did with Edgerrin Cooper. So let's hope in this draft that he does hit again, because if you look at Philadelphia, overall, I think we're maybe on a timeline just a year behind them when it comes to guys that have matured and they've hit on in their drafts defensively, and looking at what they're doing now. It took them 2 or 3 drafts. They did really do a rebuild. They started all over. So I think we're right there. I think we're really close. Maybe last year when Jordan went to the playoffs and beat Dallas, kind of set the bar a little higher in our minds than it should have been. Maybe this year, they did win more games, but we still had the bar set too high. So maybe if this team can just mature a little bit more, maybe they get another veteran presence, we can see what we can do. I'm out.
Yeah, we just keep grinding, man. I mean, what matters is that you can see the path. There's a goal set for Jordan that he has to reach. There's goals for other guys too, but it doesn't have to happen. Like, I'm looking at Rashawn the same way. Like, that what you did was not good enough, and I know you have the ability to be good enough, and I'm hopeful that you can take a step and become that guy. But I don't know if you will, and if you don't, then that's fine. We'll just find somebody else. I can't really do that with Jordan. Not necessarily as easily. I think for everybody else, it's a matter of, you're going to make our life a lot harder if you can't bounce back, but if not, we'll keep pushing on. We can find free agents. We can find whatever. Finding quarterback is not necessarily going to be quite that easy. A little bit more few and far between at the position. So, but yeah, it's just that's step number 1. Pass rush number 2. See if we can find some corners. And freaking rock and roll, man. You know what I mean? I'm not too worried about it. You can easily see the path. It's just a question of, are we going to get there? Is Jordan going to get there? Are the coaches going to help Jordan get there? Is the GM going to add the right pieces? Can the coaches get those pieces to where they need to be? That cohesion there has got to work from GM to coaching staff to players, which obviously isn't a guarantee. But again, I'm not sitting back going, I don't even know where to go. Like, we got to tear this down. This sucks. We got to start over. No, we don't.
Brian, I almost forgot to bring up something I know you're going to discuss, but I just want to throw my 2 cents in about this. When it comes to them hiring coaches and losing coaches this season, I just found out that Capinelli was hired away from us, and that they hired defensive line coach from New England, which wasn't even in the first 3 guys that I thought were, in my opinion, really good choices, or maybe 2 or 3 of them were. I wasn't crazy about the coach from Chicago, to be honest. But, you know, not to land either one of them and then end up with a different guy. A guy that you didn't even bring up or we haven't even heard anybody discuss was an option.
Well, to be fair, I didn't bring up anybody that was an option. I just talked about 3 guys that the Packers were reported to have met with. So we didn't know about this guy being brought up. So there was 3 interviews that I saw on social media that they had conducted, and then they hired this guy, which, again, as I said, obviously after you had called this in, I believe anyways, really excited about him too. I think it's a great hire. I didn't bring it up because I didn't really search for defensive line coaches the way I did linebacker coaches yesterday or this morning or whatever. So it's not in any way a knock. He kind of came out of left field.
So I don't know. It just got me curious. Is our coaching staff getting weaker through this process of having, success through last season on the defense and hiring all these coaches that were definitely trending up to only have them for 1 year? Does it cause a step back with these guys? So I'm hoping that it doesn't, but there's got to be a little hiccup in there somewhere, losing some of these really quality coaches. I'm out.
Well, Rebrovich was fired because he sucked, and then we replaced him with a guy that was, as I had mentioned, Pelissero, I think it was, had talked about him mid last year, saying he's kind of one of the up and comers to keep an eye on, for potentially even a head coaching opportunity. And then Gerard Mayo and his whole staff got fired, and we were able to pick him up. I would anticipate he's going to get hired away also, along with several of these other guys. It's one of the negatives of actually having high-quality coaches is they're not going to stick around. So I think that was a big upgrade. I can't imagine it gets too much worse. Rebrovich proved nothing to this team. As far as the coaching or the quarterback coach situation, as I said, I don't know that we got worse. I think it's entirely possible that he was sort of relieved of his duties, and Mannion, who is seen as a big-time up-and-comer, was given that job. The only one that is likely to be a downgrade is going to be the linebackers coach, but we don't know who's going to get hired there. And again, if it ends up being Tem Lukabu, I would be pretty excited about that. I really would. We'll see what ends up happening there. They may, upgrade from within, Dugan Duggan. I don't know, but I'm as of right now, I'm not upset. I'm not upset with that hire at all. And again, it's not that I didn't bring it up because I didn't like him or nobody else brought it. The reason nobody else brought him up is because the only people everybody talked about were the 3 guys that we had met with. That was the only reason anybody talked about them, not because these are like the elite leading candidates or anything like that. I don't know. I haven't listened to other Packers podcasters or YouTubers or whatever. Maybe they all hate it. I don't know, but I don't know why you would. Anytime you can get a defensive coordinator to step back and just focus on your defensive linemen, especially a guy that's had a lot of success with a lot of really talented D tackles and DNs and whatnot. I'm excited to get him in the building for sure. Now, if he was replacing a guy like Campanile, it'd be like, well, maybe, I don't know, but replacing Rebrovich, nah, I'm fine with the idea that we got better at that position.
All right, one more thing, Ryan. Try to keep it short and sweet. So Mannion has been promoted to the quarterback's coach.
Yeah.
So this is where the rubber will meet the road, and we'll actually see what we got. I think he definitely has the support from LaFleur, or he wouldn't have got that position. So let's hope that this causes a humongous improvement in things, and we'll see how this relationship between him and Love works out. But I'm hoping for the best. And one other thing regarding coaches and turnover rate and everything, I want to say what attribute Kansas City has for being in this position of going for their 3rd straight Super Bowl and however many Super Bowls in the last 7 years since Mahomes has been there, 5, whatever. Spagnuolo, I think he is the linchpin to this whole thing.
He's incredible.
This guy has stayed as the defensive coordinator this whole entire time. He has, and what's crazy is you don't hear teams saying, "Hey, Spagnuolo, we want to interview you for a job."
Right.
It's like, is he just immediately just turning them down behind the scenes saying, "No, I'm good where I'm at"? I sure hope that Hafley would maybe have the same approach to things, because that would be sweet to be able to have that continuity and have the same coach just year after year after year, just dialing up new things, because Spagnuolo is, to me, what is winning games for Kansas City this year. Their defense is what's done it, because clearly Mahomes did not. So I want to give Spagnuolo the credit for this and for him staying there as long as he has. Because, they've had turnover with the offensive coordinators, and look where that's got them. Nagy went to the Bears, didn't do so great. The enemy didn't even last 1 year with Commanders, and now is, coaching at UCLA, I believe. So, they've not had a significant turnover rate on that coaching staff. So I'm just kind of hoping that Green Bay can kind of pull it together and maybe keep some of these guys longer than just 2 years, and then have everything happen like what it did with McCarthy, because I really don't want to go down that road again. So I'm just curious what you think about that. I'm out.
Well, I think the Packers are in a position to possibly do exactly that. And the reason I say that is because the Chiefs essentially, the reason nobody's getting hired away is because they've already had those opportunities and failed. Their defensive coordinator was already a head coach and failed. Nobody wants him to be a head coach anymore. Their offensive coordinator was already a head coach and failed with the Chicago Bears. Nobody wants him anymore. It's not impossible that they'd get another opportunity, but the point is they may not have much more upward mobility. And now, I've mentioned we got guys that potentially could get hired away because they're overqualified or whatever, but, Derek Ansley was a terrible defensive coordinator. It went horribly. Same potentially for Covington. I don't know. I mean, it was such a short-lived thing, but, maybe he's not at the top of a lot of lists because of the way things went. And so he may end up being kind of just stuck there. So, it's not impossible. I mean, we did lose one coach, but he hasn't really gotten an opportunity yet. It's possible he goes to be a defensive coordinator. He ends up failing, and not saying we would just be able to bring him right back. He probably wouldn't necessarily be able to, but if we did, he could end up just getting stuck. Same with Hafley. Again, I doubt we'd be able to just immediately bring him back the way that the Chiefs did with their offensive coordinator, but who knows? It's just a matter of there's a lot of guys who we take them as a fallback, and they're obviously going to work really hard and try to do everything they can to get another opportunity. But as these young guys continue to ascend, and the more years go by, Covington's just 1 year removed. Ansley now is 2 years? So, who knows how long before they just kind of, the NFL just kind of passes him by, and he's sort of just an afterthought, and maybe the Packers have to promote, a little bit here and there. Ansley's already the pass game coordinator or something to that effect, and maybe Covington, if he does a really good job, will be the defensive line / run game coordinator or something. You give him a little bit of a bigger title and a little bit of a pay bump or something, and just to kind of keep them happy and content for the time being, so that they don't get stolen away with that same tactic of somebody else offering them a little bit more money and a bigger title. But yeah, I think it's possible to do things like that. So Spagnuolo was head coach of the Rams 2009, 10, 11, and had a 10-38 record. So, everybody would love to have him as a defensive coordinator, but nobody's going to be able to hire him because he's already a defensive coordinator and he wins Super Bowls every year. And, so then the question is, well, would you be willing to hire him as a head coach? No. Nobody wants him as a head coach. And, and who knows, maybe somebody would rethink that. The Rams obviously were complete garbage at the time. Why not give the guy another opportunity? Maybe he's deserved another opportunity. Nobody really talks about it. But as good of a job as he's done, maybe, if you can bring him in and let him be, sort of run the defense, pair him up, and I'm sure he could put together a heck of a coaching staff. As much as, what's his name from Detroit was able to put together a staff. Imagine being Spagnuolo, who's one of the most coveted defensive minds from one of the most impressive regimes in NFL history. He'd get his pick of the litter of whoever he wants, go get a really intelligent offensive mind, get some leaders, et cetera, and put you together a really solid team. But that's the reason that nobody's getting hired away. They already have been, and they failed, and now they're stuck. And they're happy to be stuck because they're winning. I'm sure they get all kinds of bonuses and accolades and everything. So as much as they'd like to take that next step, as a consolation prize, you get to stay here and win Super Bowls every year is not the worst thing in the world. So I do think we lose Hafley eventually. I think everybody else that you look at, though, hasn't really either proven enough to be hired away and or has already tried to prove themselves at a higher level and failed, and so potentially could be stuck. So again, I'm hopeful that we're in a similar situation, at least with our defensive staff, which is another benefit of hiring these types of people. Not only are they, as I said, kind of overqualified, they were so good at that position they got hired as defensive coordinators, but the fact that they've already tried and failed means there's a good chance that not only you're getting an overqualified guy, but maybe they will not get another opportunity, or at the very least, it may take some time for somebody to actually want to try again. Because every year there's so many people that are proving themselves. Everybody wants the young guy. You get some person that's promoted. Let's just say, for example, we promote Dugan Duggan, and our linebackers are just dominant. Well, it might just be that we have good linebackers, and Hafley's a really good coach, and everybody's doing a really good job. But guess what? Everyone's going to be looking at him as, I wonder if this guy's the next big thing. And they're going to want to hire him and give him that opportunity, because everybody wants that young stud. Way further down the list is somebody who's already a failed defensive coordinator. All right, folks, why don't we leave it at that? Have a good rest of your night, and we'll talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.